So my name is Amber Gilsdorf. I am the Director of College Planning at Estrela, and I am, as you can hear, hopefully on the backside of a cold, so I don't normally sound this way, but for tonight I do. And we have a guest tonight who I will have introduce themselves here in just a little bit. As you can see, I've put just a few succinct star points, not bullet points, star points on the side that would be extraneous, unconventional ways to stand out on a college application. So these are some of the tips that we provide students that we're working with in a consulting capacity. So I'm going to go through these very quickly because I want to make sure we have enough time for our guest to demo the perhaps newest and most unconventional way to stand out on a college application. So, first, ways that we encourage students to set themselves apart on their application is to utilize the additional information section of the Common App. What I'm doing tonight, I'm starting with what's in the application, and I'm going to balloon out from there to other ideas. So within the application, students have an additional information section. So where we have students fill in information often comes from if they've written some kind of research paper or done some kind of independent research project, having them copy and paste an abstract into that additional information section, or an abstract of an extended essay. Perhaps they've written an extended essay for an IB diploma. There's a host of things that could go in this section. This is just one example, but I try to encourage students to think outside the box about what could go here. That doesn't mean lengthy anything. It can be bullet points or short information, but things that could set themselves apart. That's especially true if the schools they're applying to maybe don't have opportunities for adding in things like a link to an online presence. So some examples here would be perhaps you're a student who has a very, I don't know, specific to you and your passions and interests YouTube channel. Or maybe I had a student actually this last cycle who had her own podcast and had quite a few followers, international even, and it had gotten an honorable mention in a contest with the New York Times. So she included a link to her podcast within her additional information section. And then some colleges actually have space in their individual questions for students to include links to their online presence there. Now, that does not mean online presence like, your social media accounts, guys. It would be something that would be applicable, appropriate to you as a person that you would want representing you on your college application. Other ways to stand out, oftentimes this is more true with maybe smaller liberal arts schools or schools that have a more holistic review process of a student, but sometimes colleges will promote students, no matter what they intend to study, submitting some kind of example of passions or hobbies. So I had a student this last cycle who submitted a file of her singing because she's very passionate about choir and intended to join the choir at her future college. And the schools she was applying to, some of them allowed for that additional submission within the application. And then branching out from the application, other ways to stand out would be interviewing, whether that's virtual or in person, with an admission rep. Sometimes these reps are actually maybe upperclassmen who work for the admission office or volunteer their time to answer questions for rising seniors. Sometimes these interviews are evaluative, where decisions about the applicant might include how they did in their interview. Other times they're simply informational, and it's an opportunity for the student to ask questions and get, more information about the school. But any of that would still be a way to stand out because it all gets logged in a student's application file. And then finally, going back to areas of interest or specialization, if you are a student or you have a student who is super in-depth niche with a particular topic. or an area of fascination or study. Reaching out to a professor at that school with specific questions or really granular, detailed, well thought out ideas or questions about that professor's research, being able to engage with someone at that school could be a way to stand out. This is not to be used just willy-nilly. Professors are people. They have time constraints, just like all of us. So this would be something you'd really want to make sure your student was being guided through how to do that appropriately, um, or being overseen or supported by their counselor or consultant. So those are our very quick little star points that we wanted to make sure we opened with. But the star of the night is a newer and unique way to stand out in an application. And I'm going to turn it over to Karina Cruz, the Director of U.S. Counselor Outreach at Initial View, to talk about Glimpse. And Karina, I'm going to stop sharing because my assumption is you will want to share.
Yes, ma'am. Awesome. Hi, everyone. So my name is Karina Cruz. Again, I'm the Director of U.S. Counselor Outreach over at Initial View. I actually started off on the counseling side, so I've been in the college counseling sort of field since I was fresh out of college myself. And I stuck around. I thought it was going to be a gap year, but here I am. I'm still in the field. I fell in love with the work. And I was actually on the college access side when I came in touch with Initial View, was using their tools with my own students. And I like to say I loved it so much, I hopped on over to the other side so I can talk about it with more students, counselors, and so have you. So I'm really excited to be sharing this space with you all and share a little bit about our work. Just to give you a really quick recap as to who we are over at Initial View, we've actually been in the admissions sector for well over a decade now. We started off in the international side with our international interviews. And many of the colleges that we work with across the country were like, we need something like this on the domestic side. We want to get to know the students in a more personal way. And Glimpse sort of came about in that way. So let me go ahead and share my screen so I can sort of really run through everything with you. I'm gonna, sort of give you some example. I'm gonna do a full overview, give you some examples, do a live demo. So everyone here will become an expert on Glimpse, hopefully by the end of this session. Can you see that okay? Okay, I think you can. All right, awesome. So right now, the college admissions field, it shifts every year, but it's shifting a lot recently, right? I know on the college end, there's concerns about AI becoming more of a thing and, whether or not they're actually meeting the students authentically, right? On the student side, it's like, how do I share my story in a way that matters to me outside of just the essays? Am I covering all of my bases? So we really wanted to make sure that there's a tool that sort of cover all of those concerns in the process for both sides of the table. So Glimpse is your students are able to record a 60 to 90-second video that they're able to include in their college application. So it's a great way for you to literally insert your voice and your story in the process. Admissions officers are actually bringing you into the room as they read your application materials, and it's a great way to stand out among the masses. I tell students all the time, admissions officers are reading thousands of written materials during the cycle. They all start to sound the same eventually, but no one can copy your face, no one can copy your voice, no one can copy your story. So it's a great way to sort of distinguish yourself. And we hear from admissions officers it's a lot harder to say no when they see your face. So you want to make it hard for them, right? So there's sort of two main components of what you're getting with Glimpse. So there's the video statement, like I said, it's not meant to be school specific. So it's the one video that you're sending to all of your schools, right? And we do that super intentionally because we want to make sure students are focusing on what is important to them, what they're passionate about, what they want to, what they deem important enough to share to all of their schools. We don't want you to fit yourself into the box that you think each individual school wants to hear, right? So this is something that you're sending to all of your schools. It provides additional context and student voice, and it's all you can send. So the cost ultimately is $22 to send to any and as many colleges as you want to send it to. So it's that one-time fee, right? There's if you want to send it to an additional 10 schools, 20 schools, 30, I hope you're not applying to 30 schools. That's a lot, right? But even if you were, you can send it to all 30 if you wanted to. Doesn't change the cost of that. And being able to gain access to a fee waiver is super easy as well if that's something that you are eligible for. I will show you all of that in the live demo. And then there's the 2 virtual stars. So students get 2 stars to assign to 2 colleges in the midst of the process. This is a great way to signal to your top 2 choice schools that they are your top choices, that you're really serious about their campus, and it puts you in the driver's seat, right? To sort of indicate that to the schools, whether they, look at demonstrated interest or not. Schools like to see students that are engaging. Schools like to see students that are really serious about their campus. So it's really meaningful on the admission side. We actually have some admissions partners that have built filters specifically to see which students have sent them stars. So they want to see this if they're one of your top choices. And it's available during regular decision. So Glimpse is absolutely something that you can use during the early rounds. But our methodology behind it is that if you're applying early, not only is it a smaller application pool, but that applying early really shows a great deal of interest about the campus, right? It's during regular decision that it's way more students. You need that extra pack of punch. It's more competitive, right? So that we have the virtual stars available starting December 15th when you're in the process of the cycle. So this is what it looks like on the admission side. So a question that we get a lot is like, how is this different from a student sending a YouTube link, right? And it's just, it doesn't, if you send a link as part of the application, it's not guaranteed that the admissions officer is going to click and go out of it. For a lot of schools, they have an average of like 8 to 10 minutes to look at your entire application entirely before they have to move on to the next student. So anything that just sort of disrupts that flow can make it hard for a lot of admissions officers. But we're actually Slate integrated. So Slate is a platform that a majority of the schools in the country use to review application files. So when you're sending in materials from Common App, from Coalition, from all of these things, it sort of all funnels into this one place for the admissions officers, and we're a part of that. So we get our own tab. The video goes right there for the admissions officer. They can click play while they're looking at the rest of your materials. They can bring you into committee as they discuss you, right? So the easier we make it for the admissions officer, the more likely they're able to click and listen and actually hear your voice in the midst of the process. So you can find us on various school websites. There's Duke, there's University of Chicago, Middlebury, just to name a few. You can normally find us either in the supplement tab or in the interviews tab. But even if you don't find us on a school website, you can send it to any university you want to send it to, and we will get it to them on your behalf, right? And it all funnels in the same way. And our sort of rule of thumb is like, if you're happy with the video, send it everywhere, right? It's a value add for all of your schools to sort of get to know you in this way and get to know you more personally and authentically. So I'm going to show you a couple of example videos. A lot of students and counselors find that, it's easier to sort of get what it is that we're doing here and see it more tangibly when they see some example videos. So here is one from a student who submitted last year.
Hello, my name is Maymona Torre, and I am a senior at the Philadelphia High School for Girls. I felt like it was really important to make this video because I wanted to stand out as an applicant and not just be another name. Um, I wanted to talk about things that I like to do outside of school, not just my extracurriculars and not just my academics, because you have all of that in my application. I wanted to tell you a couple things about myself. I am a big fanatic of anything animated, as you can see on my walls and my tapestries and the way that I decorate my room. I'm a very lively person. I like being in the midst of things. There's a lot of things in my life, though, that I feel like have been some sort of setback, but I really don't let those things weigh me down because I feel like those things had to happen for a reason. And if it were not for those experiences and those conversations that I've had with people in the past, and I wouldn't be the person that I am now. And I found a way, even though it was a little bit hard for me, I found a way to just be in love with everything that I am right now in the moment instead of stressing about what I might be in the future. Even though I do have a lot of plans for myself in the future and the way that I want to help my community and the way that I want to help others that have helped me, I really like the idea of outreach and bringing back to the community what was taken from us or that we haven't had. So I think that's just a big part of who I am as a person, and I hope you consider me for my application.
Right. So Maimuna was actually able to bring us into her space, right? Show us her room, show us her interests, show her, give sort of add more color to her application that her written components weren't able to do. And something to note, right? It's just Maimuna and the camera. There's no filters, there's no editing. So you're recording directly on our website. There's no uploading of a video. And our intention behind that is that we want to make sure that students are doing this as authentically as possible, right? We don't want you to worry about creating sort of the perfect the perfect present with a bow to send to admissions officers. We don't want you to be grueling and editing over this like you've had to do with your essays, right? It's really meant for you to hit record, share a little bit about yourself in the medium that y'all are comfortable in. Students do this all the time. TikTok, Instagram Reels. This is your space, right? So we really want to make sure that you're not worrying about the editing piece and everyone can sort of go into it with the same tools involved. I'm going to go ahead and show you another example.
Hi, I'm Balan Selva. That's actually short for Bala Subramanian Selvam Muthukumaran. And listen, I've gotten a lot of questions on that name. One of the most common being, how long did that take you to spell in kindergarten? I may not be able to answer that question, but I can answer a whole host of other ones. For example, I can tell you that my name actually comes rooted in the Tamil Nadu tradition, right, which is a state in South India, which is where me and my parents are both from. My dad's name, in fact, is Selvamutukumaran Lakshmikanthan, and I took his first name as my last name, as we are kind of wont to do in that tradition. Um, After that, when I was around 5, I kind of moved to Edison, New Jersey, a place that can accurately be described as you took a whole bunch of people from Delhi and put them in the middle of New Jersey and kind of called it a day. So it's very an Indian population, which means I haven't really had to adapt in terms of culture too much. And then that brings me to my next point, which is that I'm really hoping to kind of meet a whole host of diverse experiences and diverse people in college. For example, I'm a guitarist looking for a bassist, a drummer, other people to start a band with. I'm a fantasy nerd looking for other people to create a book club with. You kind of get my drift. And on the other side, if you're a college and say, for example, you're looking for an Asian culture student with long curly hair and that kind of just loves learning, then maybe I'm the right fit for you and your college. So yeah, that's it. My name is Balan Selva, and I'm just me.
I always love that video because Balan was able to add so much of his sense of humor in this video, right? Like it's not common that you'll be able to share in your college essay saying something like, you get my drift, right? Like he's able to use sort of his own language. He's able to really share how he'd interact with folks on campus. And that's really what you want to do with these videos, right? You want to be able to sort of paint a picture for the admissions officers of how you'd engage and interact with their community, how you would be in the classroom and sharing in discussions, right? That's sort of the ultimate picture that you want to paint in your application in general, but it's a lot there's a lot more connection that you can build in the video and being able to really just show who you are and face value, right? And one thing to point out, you see that while Maimuna's video was more landscape, Balin's was more vertical, and that's because they used different devices. So you are able to do this on a computer or on the app on your phone. So whatever device you are most comfortable with, you are able to use to complete this process. So this is a student that just completed the cycle this year. And I wanted to make sure, I feel like it's one thing to hear about this from me, but honestly, I'm a little biased. So I want to make sure that you're hearing from students and hearing about their experiences with Glimpse as well.
My name is Emily Singh. I'm a senior at the York Preparatory High School. I'm a part of Prepper Prep, and I am planning to go to Yale. So I think my written application was very focused on who I am academically and my academic interests. I think Glimpse was able to really show that I'm not just like a one-dimensional academic person. I in fact do have other interests outside of academics, and I love like exploring comics and exploring like really niche topics, and I think it just showed my like intellectual curiosity, honestly. I decided to do my Glimpse on a project that I'm currently doing at school. It's a research project on Spider-Gwen and human nature. So I'm kind of linking what makes the Marvel character Spider-Gwen like a good resemblance of human nature from a philosophical lens. Is this human nature? And how does she fit this? How does she not fit it? It's been a process and I love it, yeah. Glimpse really helped me prepare for my interviews. I ended up taking what I said about that project and transferring it to all of my other college interviews. So I went to my Yale interview, I went to like a Harvard interview, and the first thing I talked about was like my Spider-Gwen project and how much I love just really doing a deep delve into both the character that I love and also just like philosophy. Advice I would say definitely talk it out with someone. Have someone like sit across from you and just talk to them, and whatever it is that you seem like the most excited about, that's your topic. Stick with that, record your 6 seconds, and it'll be good. Go Glimpse!
So one of the things I wanted to highlight about Emily's experience, one, I was actually there when she was creating her Glimpse and we sort of talked it out. So that does work for some students, and just sort of trying to chat through everything that they want to share, because 90 seconds, right, is super, super quick. You're not sharing your entire life story. They have the other materials for that. Really coming up with a point or two that you want to share can sometimes be hard for some students. So that is something that we worked on together. But one of the key things she said is that this was a great prep for her interview, right? It helped her realize what are some of the important things that she wanted to make sure to share that she didn't get to share in her written application. And my rule of thumb is like, not every school has the opportunity to interview every student or interviews at all, right? So if there's a school that you're applying to that you aren't able to interview at, this is a great opportunity for you to be able to share something that's off the page for the admissions officers to sort of visualize how you'd be on campus. But even for schools that you do have an interview for, not only is it great prep, but keep in mind when though the interview is sort of based on that one person that you're interviewing with, when the rest of the admissions committee is sort of reviewing that information, they're reviewing notes from that one person. But if you're doing a video that they can look back on, right, it gives them a place that they can have some reminders about who you are and what is important to know about you. But also the full committee gets to see it, and it's not just based on one person's opinion. So you really get to reinforce who you are in the process, even if you did already interview. So always a value add in general. There is another student testimony.
My name is
I want to make sure that we have time for questions in the demo. So I'm not going to play this, but I think a key thing that Maimuna says in her testimonial is when someone else is reading your words, they're reading it in their voice, right? We spend so much time on the essays, which are important, right? But how the person on the other end of the screen is reading it is totally up to them, right? It's based on their perspective. But when you're telling them about yourself in a video, they're seeing it for face value. They see what you look like when you're excited about something. They see, how you might engage with folks on campus, right? So it's a lot harder for them for their perspective to sort of impact how they're viewing you, because they get to see you at face value in the video. So you get more control of your narrative in that way. So you may be asking, what are admissions saying about it on their end, right? And we have tons of qualitative data that we hear from our admissions partners, in that, when I see something from initial view is the first thing that I click on. They get so many materials, so it's a great way for them to connect with a student one-on-one to learn about their interests. When they love seeing you get excited about something because it gets them excited, and that's the feeling that you want to invoke in the folks that are going to be advocating waiting for you on the other side and making those decisions. And it really fosters an opportunity for human connection. I think students really forget, because you're doing everything on a computer, that this is a human process. There's a human on the other side reading your application. So to be able to build a connection with them in the process is great, both for the admissions officer and for the student applying. So all in all, why is all this important? What are you investing? 90 seconds of awkward, right? I'm not going to lie to you and say that it's easy breezy for every single student, right? To be talking about yourself can be uncomfortable. Recording yourself is uncomfortable. So recording yourself, talking about yourself, it can be awkward, right? But there's so much that you're getting on the other end of it in terms of, there's an increase in confidence and self-reflection. Answering that "tell me about yourself" question is something that you're going to have to do in future interviews and future networking settings, right? So it's really practicing that skill is super important and great. There's an ease in interaction with important adults. At this age for students, a lot of the folks unlocking resources and opportunities are adults. So again, practicing that skill is going to be helpful for you before getting on campus. And then, just these things allow for direct connections and resources. In this case, admission to a college, but in general, exercising these skills are going to help you down the line as well. So some quick tips to think about before going off and recording, right? Be yourself. It's something that I'm going to highlight multiple times, but something that we highlight throughout the process. Colleges are looking to these videos for authenticity, right? So don't say things that you think they want to hear about you. Share genuinely about yourself. Show them who you are, because it's ultimately the colleges that really want to get to know you that are going to be the right fit for you, right? We've heard from many college partners, right, that there's so many different types of videos that students do, so many different things that they share, and they love all of them, but the ones that they don't learn so much about are the ones where students are over rehearsed or they're reading from a script, right? It sort of hinders being able to build that connection when you're focused on reading something. So don't write a script, don't read. If you want to prepare, maybe come up with like a bullet point, 2, 3 that you want to make sure to share, but don't write it down word for word. No one knows you better than you do. So I promise, maybe hitting that record button and talking for a little bit, maybe a little bit scary that first time, but once you get through it once, you've got it. You can do it. So I really suggest not reading or writing a script. And then, as I said earlier, you're not telling your whole life story. It's 90 seconds. Just give them a little bit of taste of what you might be like on campus and what's important to know about you. So quick timeline. Now is a great time to create an account and start recording. And then through the summer, you can sort of update and finalize your glimpse. You can delete and re-record as many times as you would like before you're happy with it and submit it. Once you submit it, though, it's locked in for the season. So you want to make sure that you have a video that you're happy with before you start sending it out. We do have a show to my counselor button, which I'll show you in the demo, that you can send it to your counselor before you send it to school. So make sure that you have the second eyes on it, get some feedback before you send it forward. Then, come October, November, early application deadlines are coming. That's a great time to submit your glimpse. Our rule of thumb is within about a week or so after submitting your application is a great time to send your glimpse, because you make sure that it's reviewed with the rest of your materials. It gives you that space to think about, okay, now that I have my written materials submitted, what are some things that I didn't get to share in my written application that I can now fill the gaps with using my video? And then come December, January, if you're still in the midst of the process and applying for regular decision, you can send your glimpse and use your virtual stars for regular decision. I normally suggest that if you are applying early, right, you should wait hearing your early decisions before using your stars. It allows you to strategize a little bit more, and that if there's a school that you got deferred at that you still really want to show interest in, you can use your star. If you want to make sure to use your star for your regular decision schools, you can do that. The more information you have, the more strategic you can be about using your virtual stars in the end. So I definitely would hold out in hearing from your schools before you start sending out your virtual stars, because you only get 2. So it's super important. Okay. So here's where this website is where you would go to get the process started. I'm going to stop sharing so I can pull that up for you and then start the live demo. But folks can feel free to sort of start popping questions into the QA. I'm sure the live demo we'll answer some of those questions, but just to give you that space while I'm switching over.
Quick question that might be a yes or no, Karina. Would
Mhm.
the University of California systems, or University of California schools, do they accept glimpse videos?
That's a great question. I believe a couple may. Generally the response that we get is just not yet, but we still get it to the admissions office on your behalf. What we like to say is, as much as we are an advocate for students, students are also advocating for us as well. So the more that they see students sending them these videos, I think they're gonna have to reevaluate what they're thinking, right? So we absolutely still send the glimpse videos to them. And then, just in general for all schools, like how they use the videos and their process is all different, and based on how the admissions office sort of goes through the process.
Okay, thank you. We have more in the Q&A, everybody, but we'll hold those until after the demo.
All right, awesome. Okay, so this is our website. A quick caveat, so we are making some updates to our website later this summer. So things will look a little bit different if you do plan on making an account later in the summer. But the steps are generally the same. So I think the live demo will still be great to give you all an idea of what to expect in the process. But just know it may look a little bit different if you hold out and making an account come, August or September. So we're gonna go ahead and record directly here. So first step is the rules to remember. So all of these things I sort of went over in our presentation, but that you can only send one glimpse per cycle, that you can re-record as many times, but there's no editing, and be yourself. I told you we highlighted a lot in the process because it's important. So you go ahead and continue. There are many things that students use a glimpse for, but most of the time we're looking at undergraduate admissions. So that's what we're going to go ahead and demo today. So I'm going to put in some sample information. Right. For the email, you really want to be using the email that you're using on your application. So whether it's your Common App, whether it's the individual school applications, it just makes it easier in terms of the linking on the admission side if it's all under the same email. So that is definitely something that I wanted to make sure to highlight for you all. Okay. Continue. Okay. So you turn on the camera. I might get a little bit weird on the Zoom, but it's because my camera is turning on here. It's going to ask you permission to use your camera. You want to go ahead and say yes, and then I should hop on here. Hello. All right, so you'll see there's a 90-second timer just to let you know where you're at in the 90 seconds, not to stress you out, but just so you don't get cut off things, something really important. You're going to hit start recording. Hello, my name is Karina. It's great to meet you. I'm glad to add my voice to this application, right? You're going to be saying a lot more, but just to give you an idea, you're able to review and play it back. Recording. Hello, you can watch it. You do have the opportunity to block the video and just send the audio. We highly suggest sending the video component because again, it fosters further connection, but it's all about putting the student in the driver's seat, what they're comfortable with. If you would prefer to block the video, you're welcome to do that. It still adds to the application in that they're hearing your voice, hearing your story in your own voice. But so just know that that is an option. You can delete and record again. But I like it, so I'm gonna continue and save the video. What is different about our updates is that sort of all of this registration information is on the front end before you record. But again, it's still all the same information that you're providing. In terms of adding your high school, you can do so by searching the name or searching by SEEB code. So say I don't know the SEEB code and I just want to pick my high school. I can look it up by name, then it'll fill it out for me. So you go ahead and click continue. So this is what allows us to see whether or not you are eligible for a fee waiver. So for students who are enrolled in free or reduced price lunch at school, they get a fee waiver from College Board or other testing services. They work with a college access organization. Those students are eligible for a fee waiver. So if this applies to you, you will click yes, and you won't even see the payment page. If it doesn't, you will click no. So I'm going to click no just so you can see all the steps. But that is what these questions are gauging. So again, you can review. This is where the show to my counselor comes in. So if you click on that, it allows you to put in your counselor's email. It sends it directly to them, and they can go ahead and watch it, and you all can discuss any feedback. They can give you the go ahead, say you're good to go, and then you can send to schools. So once you're ready, you will send to schools. You want to make sure you are reading through and have the correct information, because this is what allows us to get your video to your file on the admissions end. So you want to make sure that this information is correct before you confirm and send it on through. So you look through, I confirm. We do a lot of confirmation because we want to make sure that you're sure before moving forward, before things get locked in. So there's a lot of, are you sure? A lot of, can you confirm, right? Okay, and this is where the payment comes in. So again, it's $22 for any and as many colleges as you like, as well as for the virtual stars. So you'd click pay now. I'm gonna stop sharing so that I can put in card information. I'd love to give you all a free shopping spree, but that is just not in my ability to do so. But you're able to pay with card or using PayPal. Great. I'm gonna share again. And you will see, so once you submit the payment, it's right, like you're good to go. And then you're able to sort of close that tab and go back into the process. And now you can send to schools. So a question that we get a lot is, do I have to do anything to my application? Do I have to add anything on my Common App to get my glimpse through? Not at all. You literally just tell us what schools you want to send it to, and we get it to the schools on your behalf. So there's nothing that you have to do on your application for any of this. So we have over 200 institutions on this list that you can send it on through to. But even if the school is not on this list, you can send it. So I'll show you once, say you want to send it to Duke. I'm going to go ahead and send it to Duke. If you have your Common App ID or Coalition ID readily available, you can do so. But if not, you hit continue. Again, a lot of confirmations, a lot of are you sures, right? Okay. Perfect. I've sent it to Duke. But if you wanted to send it to a school that's not on there, right? Say I'm looking for Karina College. Oh, no, it's not there. You can enter it here, right? Still send it through the same way. It's going to still ask you to confirm and all of that stuff. And still on through. And then you can do this as many times as you need. Another question I get a lot is, do I have to send it to all of my schools in one shot? Can I come back later? Absolutely. So at this point, every time you sign into the portal, you would go right back to this page. You will be able to review the video. You're able to send it to more schools. So you can send it whenever you need to more schools at any point in the process. This is where you would send your virtual stars as well. So this is where you can select schools. You can only send virtual stars to schools that you have sent your glimpse to. So that's why you only see those as an option. Great, I sent my virtual star. You'll see to Duke. We also have single yellow rose. That's during the waitlist process. So that opens up March 15th. So if you hear back from a bunch of schools and you get waitlisted and you want to make sure to continue pursuing, you have one single yellow rose that you can send to a school. Same indication, same power as virtual stars. It's just in a different part of the process. So you would go here to send that. And that's literally the process from beginning to end. Again, we're making some updates so it'll look a little bit different, but if you can imagine, it'll be even more seamless, even more simplified, but this was already pretty simple and it's all, sort of the same steps. So that's it from beginning to end, in sort of the full glimpse process. I'm happy to start answering questions now.
Awesome. We have questions.
Yay.
I would say I'm very pleased at how user or even student friendly this, even the icons. So whoever the designers were, good job.
I will give them that note.
Oh, I think this one was somewhat answered, but the student was, you were in progress as the student making your account when we could finally see the list of schools that have Glimpse. Like you said, over 200 schools. I assume that means they're formally integrated into the application. Like these are schools that have been like, yes, initial view, we will accept Glimpse videos. Is there a way on the website itself for a student to like preview what schools,
That's a great
or
question.
do you not want that to be a deterrent?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely, because students can send it to any school, we don't want that to be a deterrent. We absolutely have a list of schools that are Slate integrated with us, but we have found that folks are like, okay, so then I'll only send to these schools. But again, like, and our list is always changing, right? So we are in constant conversation with schools, that once they receive a glimpse, they're like, yeah, I'll add it to the student file, or how do I get Slate integrated? So while the list is one thing now, it'll look very different, come the application cycle, which is why we don't put it right on the website as of right now. But we do have a list that I'm happy to send to you, Amber, if that's something that folks would want to have access to. In terms of the list of colleges that you see, so anytime a student sends to a school, we just add it to our list of schools that schools can send to. So in terms of schools that are directly Slate integrated with us, it's definitely over 100. I forget the exact figure. And then when a student sends to a new school, we make sure to add it to our list. And a lot of the time when we send it to a new school, a vast majority of the time their response is, I'll add it to the file, or awesome, how do we get integrated so we can make sure to get more?
So piggybacking on that response, if a school doesn't have Slate or isn't integrated with Slate, is there any way for them to view the video or?
Absolutely. Yeah, regardless of whether the school is Slate integrated, we actually have our own admissions portal that they're able to sign into and view all of the videos. It's just, Slate is usually the preferred way for folks since it just hops right in. But we do have a portal for admissions officers to sign into to see all of the glimpse videos that they've received, regardless of whether or not they use Slate.
Gotcha. So
Mhm.
if they use Slate, they can't, the college side can't turn off seeing the video. It literally is there. Or could they filter it out so they're not seeing the videos?
That's a great question. So if they are Slate integrated, it will pop into the file regardless. There are some schools that prefer to just receive the audio and not see the video, so they're able to turn that off on their end. We haven't received that feedback in schools wanting to do that, but we do have that as an option if the school would prefer to just hear the student as opposed to seeing the video. So that is an option on the school side, not that anyone's used it. But once it's Slate integrated, the student's videos will hop in to the file, as long as the student sends it there, and they don't have really the ability to filter which students they can't see a video from, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So another question, and this one, I don't know if you'll have an answer for this or if you would have heard, but do you have any feedback from the colleges? Any colleges that may have changed their mind about an applicant? Like, has Glimpse ever disadvantaged an applicant because maybe the content, like what a student said, or they didn't share it with their counselor, maybe positioned them in an unfavorable light? Or is it always, I mean, I'd like to think admission reps would always take it as either a positive or a net neutral.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the the worst feedback, which is even bad feedback that we've ever heard, are when students are reading or are overly rehearsed. We didn't exactly learn more about that student. That's literally the worst thing we've ever heard. Right. So, in terms of whether or not it's ever disadvantaged a student, I think most of the feedback we get is that it's always a value add. Worst case scenario, they just didn't learn anything new, or it just already validated what they already knew about the student. Other than that, they always tell us that, we loved being able to see the student's face. We loved being able to add this element. There's things that we didn't know about the student that sort of brings all the pieces together, and now we have a clearer sense. So no, we've never heard of a situation where it's sort of, they pumped the brakes on that student. It was like, maybe this is not the student we want here. We've never heard of that situation.
Okay. Good
Mhm.
to know. But if you're a student or a parent and you're watching this and your student does a glimpse, like all things in this process, make sure somebody gets eyeballs on that one before they press send.
Definitely a good idea.
And for those who maybe have follow-up questions for Karina, I have put her contact information in the chat, but it's just first name, Karina, Cari, at initialview.com. So
Mhm.
you can get in touch with her there. We will send the recording to all who were here tonight. And if you don't mind getting me, I know you said the list is always changing, but if you can get me a copy of that list of colleges, I will have Christina, our founder, send out that list with the recording.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. And definitely, yes, feel free to use my email. If you forget my name or if you aren't able to grab the email, we do have a general email, glimpse@initialview.com, which is a lot easier for folks to remember. You'll still be contacting me 9 times out of 10. I'm the one who responds to those emails. But that's where you can sort of funnel any questions that you have about Glimpse. And I will definitely be sure to get back to you. But either way, please definitely ping me with any questions you have. I'm happy to touch base. And for other counselors on this call, always happy to hop on a call or do another info session for you if you so please.
This was very informative. Thank you very much for your time. The work you're doing is great. And I know you do a lot of work with access too. And I'm sure that's, even more important for voices to be heard. So thank you. Thank you for your time tonight. And thank you all for attending.
Thank you.